Hello and welcome to Horror Legend with your hosts,
Legend.
and Chris. Oh my god, we're back.
Yes.
For episode 2 of Horror Legend. This is Chris, the horror weenie. I'm afraid.
And this is Legend, the horror... I don't want to say buff. I'm not like buff, but like...
Horror expert.
Exactly.
Maestro. Yes. So we're just going to get into it today because I made so many notes on this one. And first of all, how dare you? How dare you make me watch this? Go ahead and
It
tell
was
us
just
what
a
we
gun to your
watched.
head. I don't know what you're talking about. So this week we watched Hereditary. Came out in 2018. It was directed by Ari Aster. Any other movies people know by him could be Midsummer and Beau is Afraid, if anybody actually saw that one.
I haven't seen. I've been told to watch Beau is Afraid.
I
was told I would like it. It's insane.
Yes, I have too. I guess we'll have to see. It is starring Toni Collette, Millie Shapiro, Gabriel Byrne, and Alex Wolff. So, you had at least 2 pages of notes before half the movie was over.
Oh yeah, the last half of the movie, honestly, I had less notes because it started to pick up. So my brain stopped coming up with other things. You know what I mean?
Yes. Faster pace, can't write it down as well.
Exactly. And I'm just going to go through my little notes, which are, just going to be picking apart the movie, funny things. Legend will give the actual information. Let's just start from the beginning and that seamless transition from the dollhouse to the full-size set.
That shot
blew me away.
Seeing this in theaters for the first time, I knew the second that shot happened, because it's the first movie I've seen by Ari Aster, I was like, oh, this guy's a good director. Like, I already knew from just that shot that the movie was going to be good.
Yeah, I kind of had that impression too. I think this is going to be at least masterfully done.
Yes. And
it may scare me, but it'll be done well. So the next thing I have down is, what's wrong with me? I laughed so hard at the grandma's funeral portrait. I don't know why.
Oh, you look at that thing, it's supposed to be a little campy, I think.
She was sitting there so properly. It was like a Sears portrait, and I just loved it.
You just look at pictures like that, and you're like, when did they take this photo?
Right? Like, just the day before. They knew.
They knew. She was going to die. This is the picture we need. You don't have much time left. Probably a few minutes. We'll just take it now.
Yeah, the funeral. You have some things about the funeral. Sorry.
Oh, I do. So, I love that we open with the obituary to the funeral, and it just seems a little off already. But then...
Oh, yeah, totally.
Just the speech, too, that Toni Collette gives about, like, all these strangers, because throughout the movie, when you're watching it, you're kind of like, when they're around other people, you're kind of like, who the hell are these people? Everybody just seems kind of like strangers, and they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't really notice that when I watched it. This was my first time watching it, obviously, and I did not notice that.
It just feels like it focuses so much on the family that, like, if there's any extras anywhere else, that it's off for some reason.
Yeah, because you never see them again.
Yeah.
Oh, and the smiling guy that was there too, which obviously shows up later. But
was
I was very thrown off by that. I'm like, what's going on here?
Creepy.
That was really creepy.
And then like straight in the beginning too, I actually had a filmmaking note. The slow panning shots, and then you hear that rise in music, and then the fades. It's so Stanley Kubrick. The way it's filmed. I mean, if you watch The Shining, it's just slow fades of the next scene, music building, and just slow pans of locations. It's like the pacing is very The Shining.
Huh.
And I know it's a little cliche to bring up The Shining all the time, but
well,
it is. It's very Stanley Kubrick to do that, and that's one of the reasons I loved this movie so much, is because he films it like a Kubrick movie a little bit.
Interesting.
It seems like he took inspiration from that, at least in the filmmaking process. of the pacing.
I'm so glad you noticed that because I I don't know. When I watch a movie, somehow those particular kinds of details just wash over me. I did read the synopsis before I watched this, so I wasn't too afraid of anything that happened. I think the worst thing was knowing what's going to happen and waiting for it to happen, which almost is worse than not knowing, I think.
Just created more of that anticipation for yourself.
Yeah. Okay, I mean this in the best possible way. They picked actors with really interesting faces. They have character. I mean, you know, I the little girl, the husband, like, they just have these, like, very, like, worried looking faces that are wise beyond their years.
It's like very, very different worried faces too.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And then, like, I mean, just Toni Collette is so able to be, like, just deadpan, dead throughout everything, even though crazy stuff is happening around her.
Well, until she isn't deadpan.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. You know, the first thing I noticed was that ominous fucking note from her mom.
I'm gonna die. Here's this creepy note. Like,
I know, like, oh, forgive me for these things that I have done, and like,
it's like,
okay,
what?
I love it.
Please be more specific.
Yeah.
It's from that note is that one is the scene where she turns off the light and she sees the grandmother in the dark.
Yeah, that was the first, like, scare in the movie, and that was creepy as fuck.
I love that they didn't make it like a typical jump scare. Oh, she turns off the lights and you turn it back on, and then something jumps at you or turns it off and she's closer to you. It's just, she's just there.
Yeah.
And it's just enough to, like, mess with the character's head for a second.
Yeah.
And also the viewer, because if you look at her long enough, when I first saw it, it looks like she's standing still.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at her, it's like you can kind of see her move a little bit too, and it's like, I don't know why that adds just like under the skin kind of creep factor to it.
Yeah.
But I like that he didn't do a jump scare because it holds that anticipation that something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and you're still not letting go of that tension for a second.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Because nothing's there to jump at you and release it. It just doesn't happen.
And I watched this on... Okay, I watched this on an iPad because I'm less involved in the movie and it makes it less scary for me. So like that particular scene, I couldn't even make out at first that it was the grandma. I had to rewind it a couple times because I was like, it just looked like a weird, like, white demon, and it really scared me more than the grandma at first. So,
which I'm sure the darkness distorting her a little bit was supposed to make you think it might be something else, even though you know it's the grandmother.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna say I work in security somewhere, and I had to look at, like, actual camera feeds, some of which are bad and look like things are moving in them. So that was not fun.
I noticed, like, on first viewing of this movie that her artwork and how she expresses her artwork is miniatures, and I was like, that's such a cool concept for a character. And then her recreating every single little thing that's happened in her life between her mom and her with them, and it kind of is such a cool way to reveal certain aspects of their relationship.
It totally is. It was also, like, the creepiest hobby you could possibly have.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Well.
Like,
what is happening?
At
first I was just like, what is she, does she do this for, like, fun? But then like a gallery person called her or something. Yeah.
It was for an actual, like, show. She did have one next to the stairs, and it was those ones that it was 3 houses stacked on each other in the soil. It was like, oh, this was my old life, this life, new life is what I kind of got from that.
Yeah.
That one's cool.
Yeah,
the rest of them with the people.
Totally.
Like, she says the line to her daughter, she's like, I couldn't feed you because she needed to. About their grandmother.
Oh.
Being obsessed with the daughter. And then you get that reveal of Toni Collette's trying to breastfeed her in the bed, but then the grandma's next to the bed with her boob out, just ready to breastfeed the daughter. And it's like revealing how this relationship was kind of messed up throughout it.
Yeah, sounds messed up.
There is a scene where she goes to counseling close to the beginning, and she talks about her family in a monologue. We'll probably get to that in a second, but
yeah,
that reveals it too, but I like the reveal of the little things, like the grandmother just standing in the doorway of their room in one of the miniatures, and it's like, okay, this was obviously a regular occurrence. Mm-hmm. That something creepy like this was going on.
Yeah.
It's just a good, cool way to reveal new information in a movie.
Yeah. Speaking of the daughter, Charlie, who I thought was just... I think she's an amazing actress. I think she was so good in this.
I want to see her in more stuff. I wish I could see her in more stuff.
Yeah. I think Charlie and me would be friends in school. Really sweet, but, she scares me a little.
You seem nice, but you've got a dark side.
Yeah, just really sweet. We bond, and then she cuts the head off of a bird. I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, I think she'd be somebody I'd end up bonding with in school, just because when I was in school, I was super quiet and just closed off and just off to the side. Exactly. So I feel like we do that together, but separate.
Exactly.
The same bench, looking different ways.
Exactly. So you talked about the group therapy session.
Yes.
That's where I'm at right now. Which
is, it's such a well done.
Why don't you give the serious aspect of this first?
My thoughts on the counseling session, at least the first session that she goes to. It's very well done with her and the slow pan in, and the monologue she gives is just like, you're going through this woman's life of just mental illness and abuse, and it's just very, I don't know, you could feel it, and you can feel that she hasn't talked about it in a long time. Yeah. I just feel like she delivers that monologue so well, which is gonna keep going with the theme I have of Toni Collette should have won an award for this movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But it's one of those moments in a horror film, at least horror films like this, because I feel like a lot of them don't do this anymore, where it's that moment of like drama, but the audience can get like sucked into that story that she's just sitting there telling, because it either can relate to it or you're just getting lost in the storyline, and I feel like that brings people in more. You get like slasher films and stuff where it's just constantly killing, whatever. Horror movies like this, where you actually have like moments of drama that you can bring the audience in, and then you scare the crap out of them later, and you realize how messed up it is that they're a part of this now. I feel like he did that really well.
That was really engrossing. But here is my takeaway. There's always someone who has to one-up everyone,
100%.
Can you imagine going after her in the therapy session?
You can't follow that.
Like fuck my problems, I guess.
Yours was an entire generational, it was just generational trauma of the family. Like it was just it
was just horrific trauma, and just
the guy going after is like, I don't know. My mom died. I don't know. Yeah, we had a happy family, though. I don't know. Some girl like, I guess my son died. Like, what?
Yeah. Let's just all have cookies and soda now.
We just get snacks real quick.
Oh, the next thing I had down was the tongue click.
Alyssa Edwards.
I was going to say, who is she? Alyssa Edwards? And then through the whole movie, all I could think is when I heard it, like from the back seat or whatever, just Alyssa Edwards in the back. Girl.
Somebody's probably edited that video.
Oh, that'd be funny. At first, I didn't understand what was on the telephone pole, too, because I saw there was obviously something carved on it, and then later I obviously figured it out. But
well, and then, the grandmother in the funeral is wearing the necklace with it. Toni Collette also has a necklace wearing it on it. Yeah.
Didn't notice
So she's wearing a necklace that has that symbol, and then Toni Collette, when she's up at the podium giving the eulogy, she also is wearing a necklace that has that symbol.
Oh, totally didn't notice. Was she... Wait. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go over that later.
Yeah. I mean...
I had a sudden realization about the movie.
Whenever we get through it, the symbol on the necklace and the pole, and it keeps showing up, is a symbol for one of the leaders of hell named Payman.
Yeah, it's a demonic symbol. It's kind of like Necromonicon kind of symbol.
Yeah, there are some people that think that this movie invented that symbol. That is not an invention. That is the actual symbol.
I was going to say, that's a Hermetic symbol, probably. Yeah, it looks like one. Okay.
It's an actual symbol for him, which is funny because tangent for a second.
I was going to do a tangent too. Go ahead with yours.
Because I just recently played the Silent Hill 2 remake. There actually is a puzzle that had that symbol. And I was like, so it is just an actual symbol for this person. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I was looking it up and reading it, yeah, a lot of people thought that it was just made up for the movie. Like, how did they come up with this symbol? And it's like, no, this is like an actual symbol for payment in hell. Like, that's the thing.
I didn't know that specifically. I just kind of had a clue to it. My side note is that I'm the one that's super into occulty things and witchy things, and yet I'm terrified of horror movies. Just
I have all this knowledge, scared to practice. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I think it's back to the miniature stuff. I just thought it was crazy how like it takes because it did it again. How crazy it is that it takes your brain a second to like process whether it is a miniature or not.
There's a shot they do of like the house just in the trees, like background, and it's just and it looks like a miniature, but it's not a miniature.
Yeah.
But it's just all those like shots from outside the house that make it look like it's just something you can mess with. Like,
yeah, it's so cool. I
crazy.
love that. You know, again, the telephone pole, poor Charlie. I knew it was coming. I mean, obviously, like, it's a huge part of the movie. Everyone talks about it. I knew it was coming, but, you know, that's so sad. So sad.
Yeah, I remember watching the movie for the first time in theaters. I was working at the movie theater when it came out, so we saw the trailer constantly. When you see the trailer for this movie, it makes it seem like Charlie's a gigantic part of the movie, and like all this stuff is around kind of just her. Mm-hmm. And then we're watching it, and here comes a pole, her head gets knocked off, and I could hear everybody in the theater like, whoa. Like nobody was expecting that to happen.
I think here was like one of the best things, at least the most well done thing in this movie was how he doesn't look back at all. Like, it takes him a really the tension. He just doesn't want to look back.
He starts to and then barely sees it and then comes back. Like,
yeah, that was so good.
The scene, of him just in shock.
Yeah.
All the way up to the house.
Yeah, and then going to bed.
Going to bed.
But not
and
actually
then like the reveal to Toni Collette was so cool. Where it's just like all you hear is her talking, the car door open, and then just scream and then transition. I'm like, that was such a cool shot because like the son is still in shock. Like, how could you not be?
Totally. We didn't need to see her head though. I did not need to
that
see
was I loved the edit though. The edit had good timing.
Oh, totally. Everything about this movie was really well done, I think. It's just, I didn't need to see that. I'm going to say that again. I'm sure I didn't need to see that.
Also, right before the poll, they go to that party, and that's what causes it because she's got a nut allergy.
Yeah.
So they have to leave because she goes into anaphylactic shock, not knowing that the cake had nuts in it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but as a teenager, if somebody was making chocolate cake and they gave it to us and there was nuts in it, I wouldn't be happy. Be like, are we teenagers? We're putting nuts in chocolate cake? Come on.
That is strange. I'm just thinking about that.
I'm like, who's going off a recipe putting walnuts in this chocolate cake right now?
Yeah, that is weird. What teenager wants walnuts in their chocolate cake? Okay,
just want chocolate.
Like, I didn't even think about that.
I'd be so disappointed.
I didn't schedule my meals well the day that I watched this. I was planning to eat while I was watching.
Oh my god.
And then I was like, no, I'll just wait. I love how Toni Collette is screaming one second and emotionless the next. Just emotionless. Like doing her miniatures the next day, just deadpan emotionless. Like,
which I think it brings home the possibility of just like full on mental illness in the family.
Oh yeah, like you.
It's like you could tell she has weird sociopathic behaviors.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah,
and she just doesn't realize that that's what's going on.
Exactly, which leads me to the conclusion that she is not innocent in any of this. Towards the end, I realize I'm like, oh okay. She was crazy the whole time. Although I must say, I got really mad when the husband was like, "You're just crazy." You know, whenever there's a husband in a movie telling a wife, "You're just crazy,"
You're like, listen,
I'm like, fuck you.
We can realize this outside the movie, but if you're a husband in a movie telling a woman she's crazy, you need to cool it.
You need to stop.
I can think it outside here though.
She could be cutting her own head off, and don't say she's
don't
crazy.
say she's crazy.
She has a reason.
She has a reason.
I mean, she did have a reason. Yeah, speaking of which, when they all sat down at the table, and I was like, "Oh, this is the scene. Okay, this is the
big monologue."
Yeah, the big monologue dinner scene. I'm sure you have lots to say about that.
Well, I know they did it a few times. I don't know I think Toni Collette said they did it like a couple of times. But to be honest, like if I was playing that son and she was going into that, I would be. I would not know what to say. I'd probably miss my next line. Whatever. It's just like that scene was so big for her, and it was like this release of like a bunch of stuff, and she was amazing.
Yeah.
I just related kind of to the like she sits back down, and then the son has to say some backhanded comment back to her, and then you can just see her face just get super angry, and the dad's like, "Stop it!" So like I can just relate to the fact that. It's just me and my mom, and we just fight like we're siblings, and that just I can relate to that little moment of just like having to say one more thing.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and just pissing her off even more.
I feel like everyone finds something to relate to in that, because I related to her saying nobody admits anything they've done.
Yeah.
Because like that's utterly my family dynamic. No. I was perfect. What are you talking about? I didn't do that. Just the gaslighting.
It's
was
just the full gaslighting.
You grew up in a perfect, loving environment. What are you talking about? I did nothing wrong.
I just do that with like certain friends. I'm like, oh yeah, over here with your 2-parent family. Okay.
Right. I think it just goes to show that every family is fucked up in its own particular way.
And it was like the other part I think is relatable in that is just nobody admitting to anything they've done, but also just you hold things in and you just never talk about them.
Yep.
And then you just seethe forever.
Yeah.
And it's just, I feel like that was just a good scene of just like her release moment. And then I still kind of wanted him to have more of a release moment. But,
yeah.
But as the kid in that situation, you never you don't usually get that opportunity.
Exactly.
One, because you realize it's your parent, but also two, it's because I mean you can just never get a word in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene was it was intense, and I just remember watching it in the theater, just like everybody, like nobody was talking during that. It was just like laser focused.
Yeah.
Because she commands it.
Totally.
It's so good.
Absolutely. Tense dinner table scenes are always my favorite in any movie. I always think of Rocky Horror Picture Show, where there's the dinner scene.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just so good. And I think it's the funniest part of the movie, and no one else does. But I love like just scenes that are supposed to be so domestic and so normal, made completely whacked out. That makes me...
Clue the movie with
God,
just
one
that little
too.
opening scene of them at the dinner table.
Mrs. Peacock just...
rambling for 5 minutes.
Good.
It's amazing.
So, now we're at the hour mark. It's funny because the movie is divided into exactly at the hour mark.
Oh, yeah.
Then it, like, shifts into paranormal because she starts talking to that woman in the parking lot.
Oh.
Yeah. It like that shift immediately made me go like, oh, okay, now I'm invested, because it got like paranormal, which is my favorite kind of like horror movies.
And I'm honestly glad Ari Aster just like wasn't afraid to go there with it.
Oh yeah, he went
like,
full tilt at that point.
Yeah. I felt like you still had the tension whenever they were doing like the seance thing. Just because of Toni Collette's reactions and stuff, but it still added that level of campy to this like
absolutely
unhinged like story that was happening.
Yeah.
It like kept it a little not ridiculous, but a little just lighter for a moment when it started adding the paranormal stuff in, because it's like we've all seen Ouija board movies. We've all seen like
Exactly.
Or heard stories and stuff like that. And so it's like so cliche, but it just works for some reason.
Yeah. Oh no, it totally worked. And it's just you knew that woman was not talking to her grandson.
Oh,
Like you just knew it, because children are never children in in these paranormal things. It's always a demon. It's always a demon.
and like, I mean, she probably knows that too, based on who she was at the end of the movie, but that she wasn't talking to her grandson.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, this is all a cover.
It's so weird. I mean, it's just funny because you get to the end of it and then you look back on certain things, and that particular scene, it's like...
It's like, this should be so cheesy and laughable, but it works right now. And I don't know, like, but I'm still feeling it.
Totally. Okay, so I have less notes in the second half of this movie because
you got a little more invested.
It was a little more invested, and everything started happening at once. I just love how you're like questioning her sanity, Toni Collette's sanity. Is this like really how it? Is this really how any of this is happening, or is she just imagining it? I mean, like it's like all these different like you don't know whether she's in on it. You don't know what it's just all of that. Like I love that.
Well, and they throw that at you early and kind of make you question it throughout when she's talking about her family's got like somebody had bipolar disorder, somebody's had schizophrenia, and things like that, and it's like you think that it's just that's what it is. Mental illness. And you get further in the movie, so you're just questioning the whole time, like, is this really what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, is this really what's happening right now? Well, and then the sleepwalking thing when she's talking about sleepwalking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have those like weird dream sequence moments,
Yeah.
And then it snaps you out of it, and you're like, okay, so what is real? Like, what is going on?
Oh, God, yeah, when she was like trying to take his head off.
Oh my God! And like,
God.
like right before that, whenever I thought it was it's a cool edit, but it's so creepy. Whenever he sees his sister in the corner of the room, and then her head falls off and just turns into a ball that rolls on the floor. It was such a cool transition, but it's so creepy.
Oh, it was so good. And I really liked the part where she was like trying to take his head off, because like it represented like the anger she probably would have had towards her son had he accidentally killed her sister, Like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you can't help but have anger there, I'm sure, and it's like
it's kind of like a head for a head situation where it's this is actually me being angry right now.
I mean, the movie in itself is like a whole family dynamic kind of thing, which I think is really cool. And it was just like masterful the way it took that extreme twist when she found all of her mother's stuff about the demon summoning. I was like, M. Night Shyamalan only wishes he could twist.
He could
like
do
that.
this twist.
I mean, I kind of cease to find a movie scary when it becomes supernatural. I like fully believe in supernatural things for the most part, and I've experienced things, but none of it's scary. And like, so that's why I just don't find it scary when they do like demons and things, because I don't really believe in.
Right.
Yeah. But they still did a good job, towards the last part of the movie on that for me.
Yeah.
So.
It's such a well-made movie because it is a horror movie, especially closer to the end, and then it also is a paranormal demon movie, whatever. But I mean, it's really a movie about a family's grief. Yeah. And dealing with grief disguised as a horror movie.
And that's what I wrote that down, like, that was like my first comment, because I just like got that vibe immediately, and I was like, this is like a movie about like death and grieving. This isn't like a...
Which, if you if anybody else also watches Midsummer, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's weird, messed up cult horror, but it's really about her dealing with her grief and taking control of her life is what it is. For Florence Pugh in that movie. But this one was definitely just like a family dealing with grief, and it was like such a good way to show it and show how people, when they are dealing with emotions, just do not communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And it just causes things to just fall apart and crumble.
Yeah. I mean, the number of times I ended up in the rafters trying to cut my head off with piano wire, I can't begin to tell you.
And that's just because I wasn't talking to my mother at the time. About what I was feeling.
I mean, speaking of the last 15 minutes of the movie, I hate you for making me watch that. I mean, that's when the movie just sort of comes to, a climax, a conclusion.
Yeah.
But it's just more and more horrific, and it just throws all of the horrifying things in at once.
It just creates this whole mass of whatever the family's been dealing with and not communicating and everything. It just throws into this last 15 minutes of everything just hit the fan and it's unhinged and paranormal and it's crazy.
Just like a strange culty orgy of blood and naked people. I don't know.
Naked people, and it's and speaking of the naked people, we always like to talk about the naked people. That's one thing in this movie that's also really cool is Ari Aster likes to hide things in the background.
Yeah, I noticed that. But
Loves to if you there's some shots of the house in the dark, and not just the last one where you see everybody standing in front of the house.
Yeah.
When it cuts, I mean, there's some scenes I think where you can look in the background and you can see a person standing in the trees randomly somewhere, things like that. Or I don't know, I remember watching it the first time and hearing everybody gasp, and then finally my eyes adjusted and seeing the mom in the corner of his room.
Yeah.
On the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, Amazon brightens stuff up. When you watch that in the theaters, you can really only see her legs until your eyes adjust a little bit, and then you can kind of see her more.
Oh.
And it looks so cool. And, of course, right when he turns around, you just see her, go through the room.
Yeah,
and it's...
Yeah.
Everybody... I remember they even made memes about that after it came out. Somebody made one that was go to bed, check the corners of my ceiling for the mom from Hereditary. All right. Good night.
No.
Because it's creepy, and it's that weird letting the audience know something that the person does not. And because you know that information first, you just feel even more tense because you can't tell the person that somebody behind you.
Exactly.
It's just... There's benefit in staying with the character's knowledge for the audience, and there's also benefit in showing the audience a little bit more than the actual character knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Because they both create this tension and anticipation.
Totally. We'll talk about this in another movie at some point, I'm sure. But whenever there's a POV of the killer too, I always enjoy that because I like to do that on the weekends. No, because it's it is that tension of something that they don't.
Yeah.
Intimately because you're seeing it.
Yeah, you're seeing it firsthand, and they just are not noticing it, and you just feel like, my God, what are you doing?
Yeah. I did have another laugh again, though, in the last 15 minutes when she floated into the treehouse.
Oh.
I found that hilarious.
It was
superhero.
It's so cheesy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it because it's cheesy, but
exactly.
It's so cheesy.
It was.
Where you just see her body float into the... just float in. And it's funny because probably supposed to create tension, scary, whatever, but even when he jumps out of the window and the music and all the stuff that's happening just goes quiet the second he jumps out the window, it's kind of just comedic timing a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
It's you're in this attic with a bunch of naked people, your mom's trying to cut her head off, and then it's just I mean, would you not jump out the window?
Yeah, exactly. The poor Peter, though, in this whole movie.
Oh my God.
I felt so every 20 minutes I was like, oh.
It's the daughter's dead at this point, which is sad.
Yeah.
But now Peter's just having to deal with everything.
He dealt with everything. He dealt with the pain and the guilt, and then he had to deal with people being mad at him and trying to kill him, and it's just oh my God.
His mom just completely unhinged with the sleepwalking and just trying to pull his head off, and he's just a teenager trying to deal with the fact that he accidentally killed his sister.
Seriously.
And he's been in shock this entire time. I mean, even when those moments when he's with his friends or he is something else and he has a hard time breathing, and it's supposed to be I feel that's his grief reaction to it was doing what she was doing whenever she was going into anaphylactic shock. He can't breathe. He is feeling what she's feeling.
Yeah.
And that was his form of guilt, which is so sad.
I know. How old was he when he did this though? Because he looked older than a teenager for
I think.
sure.
Well, I think Alex. I think Alex Wolf. I think he was in his mid-20s, maybe.
Oh, okay,
I'm not
yeah,
sure.
he looks a bit older than a teen, and
I'd have to like actually check, but I think he was in his 20s.
I was like, he's hot. He was very hot, which makes me feel even worse for him because he's hot.
Because you're beautiful.
Come
like,
on.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then there's actually that scene. I don't know if you found it intense, but the scene in the classroom when he ends up smashing his face against the desk.
Oh my god. Yeah, there are like a lot of things don't bother me too much. As far as that kind of thing goes,
Yeah.
but like that bothered me. I that definitely bothered me. That scene was really intense. Just seeing the smiling face in the reflection.
That's literally the only reason my mom will not watch this movie is because she hates it when people do that with mirrors. And
Really?
She's like, just that scene in the trailer, I can't do it.
Huh. I get that.
For this scene though, if you notice, before he starts slamming his head against the desk, he puts his arm up.
Yes.
If you look at his arm and then you look at the picture of Payman holding the staff that is a hand, it's the same symbol.
Oh.
So he's making the staff with his hand, and that's why he does it with his hand, and then starts hitting his face against the desk.
Okay.
And so he actually did this himself too. They made the top of the desk soft.
Yeah.
But the bottom was still hard.
Oh.
And I think he said when he first smashes his head on the desk that I think he ended up breaking something the first time they did it. Because he wanted to do it himself.
Yeah.
I think he said that hurt, and then he like had to jump out of the chair, fall over, like do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, like afterward, like his legs were completely bruised up from hitting the chairs, and his ankle was swollen. So it was a whole like shoot day where he ended up getting a little bit injured because of the scene. But he does it very well.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
it's intense. It's
it
very
read
intense
on camera.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people in these movies make pacts to like resurrect a demon or something like that. It's kind of like, and I'm gonna compare. It's the only time I'm talking about it. I kind of compare it to like the election because you're like, oh, I want to bring this demon back from the dead, who's probably going to just murder me. He's not going to be grateful. He's not going to be like, oh, yes, you're my servants now. You can join me reigning, over hell. No. He's just going to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing good's going to come out of it. I just don't understand that.
Oh, my God.
Which leads me to what I feel is the moral of this story. Don't trust old people.
Don't trust old white people.
Don't trust old white people.
Whether it's this movie, Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
We can just stop trusting old people in horror movies. I think.
Yeah. Just in life in general. Just don't trust the old white people. They don't have your best interests at heart.
It's always a cult, or it's selling your black friend, like in Get Out, to some white people.
I don't even want to go there with that one.
We might get to that another time.
We might. I will just say that I've watched a few of his movies now, and I liked almost all of them. And I liked Get Out, but that was the only one that made me really just so uncomfortable that I could barely get through it.
Completely understand that.
Yeah. Yeah,
because like you're watching these white actors do it, and they're just acting, but it's like you just as a white person watching
I've seen people like that.
Oh,
and
seen people like that. That
I know. I'm related to people like that.
See people like that. If people don't really know you, that they think you're a person like that, and it makes sense.
Yeah,
you can't blame anybody for that. Really.
I don't blame anyone for not trusting one white person. I don't blame it. I do not blame anyone.
His movies are good like that. I always thought Jordan Peele's movies were like feature-length Twilight Zone episodes. That's just how they feel to me. It just feels like he could come out and narrate it, and then go into it, and it would totally work.
Yeah. The only one that I wasn't totally 100% on the ending was the alien one. What is it?
Nope.
Yeah, although the whole movie amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But the ending, I was kind of like,
Well.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of this episode, and I am never going to watch this movie again. I mean, I might. You know, there's so many things in the background, so many little things I missed. I might watch it again sometime.
You know, I really think he made this movie to help people get through hard times.
Yeah. It really helps. They should play this in grief centers or something. You know?
Nursing homes, give those old white people some
yes.
ideas of summoning demons. Involving their families.
Yeah. Get Gertie and Ada together and form a dark coven and summon payment.
Just for the riches. Just for the riches.
For the riches that you will
just
receive.
For the gold.
Yes. Oh, those riches will do you great when you're dead and in hell. In hell.
In hell.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I make some suggestions. What should we do? Like, put it in the comments. Put in the comments how much you hate me or
how much you love me.
How much you love me. Just comment. I don't care.
Give us more ideas of things to do, maybe even movies to watch, and ask us questions. We don't mind answering stuff.
Exactly. I mean, I'd love to fill up some time at the beginning just answering questions. Why not? We need some filler.
It'd be great. Good to answer questions on the pod. You know, you need to know my age, social security number.
Yeah. Like and subscribe, and thank you, and goodbye from Chris and
Legend.
See you next time.